I still don't see it telling me that. Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and it is a delight to have you here. Our today's topic is going to be about employing our creative mind or employing our creative system so that we can understand. Okay, let me go ahead and put this up all the way so hopefully you can see the as we are talking. And we're talking about employing your creative mind. Do you ever forget things? And well, that's probably a part of the human condition. Anyway, so let's look at our multitasking persona. It's kind of something that we just adapt as we go along through life. Do you have a bad case of the overscheduling, overcommitting, overspending, overreacting? Well, the solution to that is to not try to cope with all these things, but to actually overcome them so that we can be more productive. So we're wanting to employ our creative mind, which Dr. Glasser called the creative mind. We were wanting to employ what the world at large calls our unconscious mind, and Dr. Glasser called it the creative mind. And we're not wanting to juggle, but we're wanting to kind of balance things. You know, the very word of juggling kind of smacks of dishonesty that I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do 10 or 12 things here, and it's just not working, and back and forth. And we kind of have things up in the air. And I have a quote here from Mark Waldman. I love what he says. He said, he is one of the founders of the HeartMath Institution. And he also has his own website and everything. But Mark Waldman said, life is simple and satisfaction is easy to obtain, but the human mind is blind to this fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth is the fact that we do have that creative mind. And so in balance, it's exactly what we're wanting. It's balance. And it's not that it's static all the time, because we're not static all the time. We're constantly in movement. And so, but to be balanced rather than having the scales of what I have and what I want being so out of balance. And in the process of that balance, we've had this equilibrium of steadiness, but more of a poise instead of a rush and a catch up, and an effectiveness. And in the whole process, we want to redeem the time, meaning that I like to look at redeeming the time as using a coupon. You know, do you ever use a coupon to get pizza? And you still get the whole entire pizza, but it doesn't cost as much as the original price because we've redeemed the coupon. And so as we can begin to redeem time, we can just have so much more productivity. And so when you want what you have, it's the mystery, it's the excitement, it's the mystery that life self-regulates, because we have these scales in our creative system. We have these scales. And so we have there, what we are weighing is what I have versus what I want. And whenever what I have and what I want, when it's out of balance, that's whenever we become a little bit more agitated and we're not able to self-regulate. That when we begin to want what we have, it's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing that I want this, but this is what I have. I want peace. I want harmony, but I have chaos and I have debt and I have frustrations and I have this old house and I have this car that's not as new as could be. But if you're looking at what the haves, but as we begin to look at what we want and appreciate what we have, then it's just amazing as to how it begins to self-regulate. And we can be quite thankful that, well, maybe that's not, the car may not be running the absolute best, but it gets me there. So we're wanting to look at our own star assistant, which is, it's listening to yourself so that you can change the conversation you have with yourself so that you can get honest with it and see what it's telling you and what you're saying. And then also, we want to take charge of our creative mind. And our creative mind is always on, it's always alert, but it runs quietly. And it seems to be ineffective because it's behind the scenes. But once we realize it's there, it's really, really quite effective because it's always giving us good advice. But if we're not listening, we're not hearing it. And our creative mind knows us better than we know ourselves. Through that creativity, you know you better than you know yourself. So we want to listen to ourselves and begin to change the conversation. So our conscious mind is aware of approximately 10% of what's going on in the world, whereas our unconscious or our creative mind is aware of everything, not only the conscious, but the unconscious also. And so we want to listen to ourselves. We want to have that main focus. And what is the main focus? Well, it's to succeed. And in succeeding, we begin to multitask. We got to do this and do that and do something else. And so there'll be about 5 to 10 to 15 to maybe even 20 things that we have on that to-do list today. And then we negotiate, we compute, we categorize, we notate. And so our unconscious has this cosmic intelligence that is listening to all that stuff we're telling ourselves and writing down and making worries over. And so we talk to ourselves and it creates our ego. It begins to, that ego is always listening, always, always, always. And whenever it hears you being despondent or being overly happy or whatever, it wants to know what it can do to help you. And so we become aware to our senses and we begin to see ourselves in reflection. Instead of who we are right now, it's who we have been or who we want to be rather than being. And we see truth as an illusion. Well, I know you can say that this is really a good path to follow, but I'm just not quite so sure. Whereas our unconscious mind is aware of everything, but it's just really more, it's our main function for us is to keep on breathing. It wants to keep us alive. And that instead of millions of tasks, it's to be simultaneous in working with all of them. I mean, that creative mind is keeping all of our body regulations in as regular as it possibly can, as we will cooperate with it. It sorts stories and it recalls all those long-term and kind of helps us to connect this to that. Have you ever, been asked a question and you knew the answer was in there somewhere and you just couldn't quite get it? Well, that creative mind was searching for it and it'll come up with it. It is aware of the cosmic intelligence. And I call it God. You could call it Mother Nature. You could call it Father Time. There's a lot of things, a lot of mysteries in life that we're not aware of that seems to be spontaneous, or it seems to be coincidental, or it seems to be a good luck. But there's a cosmic intelligence that our creative mind is aware of. It listens to our self-authority, meaning that when we are thinking something and we are speaking, I want this, I don't want that, our creative mind is listening to that and it's wanting to know how it can help us. It's helping if whenever we have, and the creative mind dispenses adrenaline or serotonin, meaning that if we are upset, it's going to help us get more upset. Whereas if we can begin to calm ourselves down by choosing to take a deep breath and let it out slowly rather than hyperventilating, then our creative mind says, hey, let's give a little drop or two of serotonin so it can begin to calm down that agitated mind. And the creative mind knows us intimately, knows us intimately. So as we take charge of our creative mind, it's always on, always alert, running quietly and effectively behind the scenes, then it's from the bottoms up as well as the top down. So we're going to start from the bottom. How you do one thing is how you do everything. When we come into this universe, we are not a blank mind. We already know how to suck. I mean, there's just so many things that the infant knows from the very beginning. But then also we begin to learn and learn quickly. And we begin to realize that life has a purpose, and that then as we get a little bit older and climb on up, we begin to look at how things are unique and creative. And maybe you're like your brother, but maybe you're not. That you're learning to be who you are, and that you are establishing your own beliefs and values, and that you are improving on those skills because you're wanting to succeed and get better and better. And you're monitoring your behavior. The only thing is we may not be real aware of it. We may be monitoring it, but not being that conscious of it. And then we want to change our environment and move on up to the penthouse. And it's the same thing as going from the top down. So whichever way you look at it, whether you're trying to build up or whether you're trying to, it is looking at what it is that your creative mind is trying to help you with. So why do we live from the top down and from the bottom up? Is because everything we do affects our bottom line. And so here's the bottom line. And I've just put here a little graphic on what is life's arithmetic, or what is life's, the way that it handles it. I mean, it's just so diverse. And so all of us were born into a dysfunctional family, some more so than others. All of us were teased as a child. But yet the thing of it is every one of us have gifts and talents, whether we develop them or not, we have them. We've all experienced rejections. We've all experienced disappointments. We've all experienced successes. We've all had education of some kind, whether it was kind of the grassroots or the educational. We've all had experiences and failures and self-esteem and self-image and miscommunications. But when we get down here to the bottom line, how all of these things makes up who we are today and who we will be tomorrow as we continue in that. But then here's a little graphic that when we are born, we begin to look and see and learn, and we have these concepts. And if we agree with them, then we begin to hold on to them. We begin to believe them, and they become a value system for us. And we begin to act upon those things that we have agreed to and that we believe in and that we value. But as we go through life, it's really important to continually evaluate. Is what I'm doing, is what I'm experiencing, is it as good as it can be, or could it be better? And as we begin to look at and see if on one hand we're more content, that we're more fulfilled, that things are going well, then maybe we're getting pretty close to knowing what truth really is, and what it means to relate to self and with others, and what it means for reality as opposed to illusions. But if we begin to realize that we're more confused and we're more frustrated, and that there is more challenges in life, and there's just more frustration and more no's than there are yeses, then maybe it's time to go back up here to the beginning and begin to look at what concepts we agreed to, what we believed in that may not be that. And so chaos versus calm. Pressure becomes discriminatory. I'm going to flip back. I went ahead and we need to make time to just be who we are. So I suggest that we're like a three-legged stool, and that we have things to do, and we have things that we have to do, and things that we want to do. But we also have our being. And sometimes we get so busy on those front wheels that we don't pay any attention to the being and the doing. So pressure becomes discriminatory, meaning that it just pours down on us. And my definition of stress is living outside of our resources, making commitments to more than we have time for, making purchases for more than we have money for. It's living outside of our resources. And the pressure becomes moot point whenever we learn to go with the calm instead of the chaos. And so here is this 1-ton weight that's right here on our shoulders. But you see, that 3-legged stool is still healthy and is able to handle that tonnage of weight because there is a balance in activity and inactivity, that there's a balance in work and in Sabbath rest. There is a balance in waking and sleeping. There is a balance in things that you want and need. So take charge of your creative mind. Well, how do we do that? The disciplined life is hard, but also the undisciplined life is hard. So we get to choose. We get to choose whether we're going to have that difficult, disciplined life or whether we're going to have that even more difficult, undisciplined life. It's our choice. Well, I'm backing up simply because I went so fast, I left something out. And maybe I left it out completely. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing because I have left something out. But what I'm going to do is pull up again and share and go to the very last slide. We'll go to that one. Then in our strength stretch zone, the safety zone is to become comfortable, but sometimes we become stagnant. And then we try to change things to the point that we snap. But as we get into a growth zone where we can think into it, meld into it. So we're going to go ahead and close this out with this progressive blessing. May you awaken each morning filled with excitement over a new day. May you eagerly taste the deliciousness of life. May you revel in challenges presented and humbly triumph. May you embrace change and see it as the life-giving force that it is. May you be released from whatever may be keeping you stuck. May you receive the wonderful gift of being yourself. And may your last thought of the day be a profound, yet a simple thanks. To just be thankful for life and all that it has to offer and all the things that it is teaching us as we make ourselves aware and listen to our wisdom heart. So thank you for being here and many blessings.